Okay, so before we start building this application, let's do a walkthrough and just see what we're going to build anyways. Obviously, this is a portfolio website to display just how amazing you are as a developer. So on the left-hand side, we have the About Me section. You're going to display a beautiful photo of yourself and the links. So here I have GitHub link, if you have one, LinkedIn, YouTube. Let's say you have a YouTube channel, or Medium if you write articles. You're going to have your name, your role, and just a short description of why you are awesome. We're going to have a button to let people download your resume, send you an email, or even give you a phone call. Then right here, we're going to have the menu. We're going to support multiple languages. So I've implemented French and English. So as you can see, the text is in French right now. And if we click back English, it goes back to English. We're going to support multiple teams. Like this is the DAC team. I think it looks nice. I mean, if I do say so myself. Then we're going to have menu for just different parts of the page. So here is the home page. As you can see, we have a featured project, show our latest projects. We can see a live preview or even the repo of the project. We can see our work history. We can see the skills and integrations. These are clickable buttons, by the way. So just change to see different skills and our education. So of course, they all have these buttons that let us see the full history. For example, education, you can see our full education history. So if I click on this, it takes us to the education page. As you can see, /education. We can see the full education history. We can do the same for the skills, see all our skills, do the same for our work history, and etc. So we're also going to implement this AI chatbot. And basically, this AI knows everything about our portfolio. So we can ask the AI for help. Let's say we go to the project section and we want to see how many projects uses, let's say, MongoDB. So we can say how many projects uses MongoDB. And as you can see, we just have one project. Okay. Based on the available data, one project uses MongoDB. It is named NATO, which is this one. We can ask, what is NATO? Good. So it comes back with NATO is a productivity app that uses AI to assist users with blah, 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 just everything, which is what NATO is, right? So this is going to be fun to implement, but the next question is how are we going to implement all of this? And that's a good question. Okay, so you might have already guessed, for the framework, we're going to be using Next.js. For version control, we're going to be using, obviously, GitHub. For deployment and hosting, we're going to be using Vercel, which works very well with Next.js. For styling, we're going to be using styled components. For the AI chat, we're going to be using OpenAI. And throughout the application, we're going to try to utilize AI. And this, I'm going to be using Klein just for AI assistance. So I'm really excited about all of this, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Really happening. What is Next.js? What's a better way to find out than going to the home page itself? Right away, we can see it says the React framework for the web. What does this even mean? I mean, we know about React, right? But then framework, React framework. What is this? Okay. So a framework is a structured set of tools and conventions that provides everything you need to build applications without starting from scratch. In this case, Next.js, right? Next.js provides, if you look at the left, comes to these new rules and regulations, right? This set of tools and conventions that we have to follow to build applications for the web. Unlike a library that only solves specific problems, in this case, we're going to talk about React. A framework like Next.js gives you built-in solutions for routing, rendering, optimizations, guiding how your app is organized and developed. So for example, if you remember from React, if you wanted to handle routing, we needed to bring in another library like React Router DOM and etc. But in this case, since Next.js is a framework, it gives us methods and conventions on how to handle this. Okay, now we know what a framework is. What is React framework? It just means This structured set of tools and conventions are built on top of React. Basically, it extends React. So we still get to use the React that we know and love, but with these new rules and regulations. Okay, now we know what a React framework is. What are these structured set of tools and conventions that apparently Next.js have introduced? Okay, let's go back to the website. If you scroll down just a bit, you're going to see built-in optimizations. So it has a way to optimize images, fonts, scripts, etc. Dynamic HTML streaming, React Server components, a very new, interesting feature of Next.js, data fetching, CSS support, client and server-side rendering, and etc. So these are these new conventions that Next.js have introduced, and we're going to be making use of them in the application. So now we know what Next.js is. How do we even get started? Oh, get started. Let's click on it. Good. Takes us to the documentation. We've kind of gone through this, right? Installation. Click on installation. Good. So we see this system requirements. We do have to have Node.js installed, at least version 18.18. So if you don't have Node.js installed, or you don't have at least version 18.18, then you should go to the Node.js website and you should go through the installation process. But if you do have Node.js installed, or you just want to make sure, you can go to your terminal, run node-v. As you can see, I have version 22.18. Good. Let's go back to the website. So now we do have Node installed, and I do trust that you're not watching this course from Iraq. I would suppose you have one of these systems. So let's go to the installation steps, I would call this. The quickest way to create Next app is to use create Next app, which sets up everything automatically for you. Oh wow, this sounds easy, right? Okay, let's do that. So let's copy this command, npx create next app at latest, and let's paste it in our terminal. But before that, I want to say I'm already in the folder that I do want to create my application in. So you should make sure you have a folder, or you're running this command in the folder that you want the application to be in. So I'm going to paste the command and I'm going to press enter. Okay, so it's going to ask, we need to install create next app. I'm going to type Y, press enter. What do I want my project to be named? Let's say my portfolio site. Sounds like a cool name. Would you like to use TypeScript? Of course. Would you like to use ESLint? Of course. Would you like to use Tailwind? Okay, so like I mentioned, we're going to be using styled components in this course. But if you prefer Tailwind for some reason, you can use Tailwind, but you have to, of course, write Tailwind styles. So for this option, I'm going to say no, I do not want to use Tailwind. Would you like the code in source directly? I would love that. Thank you very much. Would you like to use App Router? Recommended? Yes, I would. Would you like to use Turbo Pack? Yes, I would. Would you like to customize imports? No. Okay, now it's going through the process, and now we wait. Good. Seems like our application has been successfully created. At least that's what it says. But let's check that out. Okay, so I can navigate into the application by saying cd my portfolio site. Good. Now I'm in there. Since I'm using VS Code, and maybe you do have a favorite code editor that you're using, you can go ahead and open it there. But I use VS Code, so I can easily type in code space full stop, press enter. Perfect. Here it is. Okay, so I would guess you guys are used to React, or if you're not, or if you are, this should be familiar to some degree anyways. So of course we have the node models folder. This is going to hold the dependencies. We have the public folder. It's going to hold like SVGs. Yeah, just basically what they call like images and stuff. And then we have the source directory, which is going to hold our application. And our application, we have page.tsx because we're using TypeScript. So it's just a component with a component. And we have the git ignore file. It's going to list the files we want to ignore. ESLint config for ESLint configuration. Next environment variables. It says do not edit this file. Okay, sorry about that. Next config is going to hold our configuration for Next.js. Of course, package.log, package.json, which should hold, I mean, you should be familiar with this. But I want to go to the script area of this. And as you can see in dev mode, it says to start the application, we should run npm next dev, which is started up with TurboPack. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I can open up the terminal in VS Code. I'm going to close GitHub Code Pilots, and I'm going to run npm run dev to start up our application. And this is going to start up the application in development mode. And as you can see, it says our application is started up on localhost 3002. Let's visit there and see. Good. So this application started up, and this is wonderful. A bit of PSA. So I have changed my, well, what do you even call this? Okay, it was localhost 3002 before, but now it's 3000. So I've changed that, and now on localhost 3000. Good. All right, now that's out of the way, let's talk about doing some cleanup. So we go to the app folder, we can go to the page.tsx, which is what's responsible for showing all this stuff right now, which we don't need. So let's clean it up. I can clean it up by removing everything, and we'll just leave the div. Good. Now we'll just say hello world, exclamation mark. We can remove the styles to page, remove this unused imports. Page to module.css, we don't need this anymore. We can get rid of this file, delete. Global.css, I don't think we need this anymore, but it's used in the layout.tsx. Let's get rid of global.css. So if we go to layouts, now we have to remove this import because it's not there anymore. Favicon.ico, we can leave that for now. What else? Let's see. Refresh. Good. This should go if we just refresh again. Good. Everything is good. Okay. So now we have application, well, a bare bone boilerplate right now. I want us to go to GitHub. This is optional, by the way, but I want us to set up a repository for our projects. Let's call it portfolio sites. Okay. And we can just, I will leave this blank for now. Visibility, I'm going to make it public, private. I'll make it, I'll leave it as public. We're not going to add a README because I believe we already have one. We're not going to add a git ignore because, again, we already have one. And licenses, no licenses. So we can click on create repository. Nice. So if we go back to our project, on the bottom left, you can see we already have some kind of tracking. So as you can see, we're on the main branch, and it does track the changes. In this case, I'm using source control in VS Code. I don't know how you manage your source control or version control, but this is how I do mine. Okay, so let us go ahead and copy this command, and then I can split my terminal and I can paste the commands. What are these commands anyways? So this is just going to add this repo, right? This repository we just created. We're going to have the branch main, and it's going to push. Okay. So let us click on enter for the commands. And as you can see, it's done. If we go back to the repository, refresh, Nice. We can see we've pushed it. Okay. I can also commit this again. We can say initial commit, commit it, then stage changes. Okay, we have to stage the changes. So I'm just going to stage all these changes and commit it. And I'm going to sync the changes, which is going to push and pull. Well, it's going to pull and push. Okay, nice. So I'm going to refresh. Good. Okay, so this is GitHub setup for tracking, and we're going to try to make periodically push. We're going to periodically push to our repository. And what this is going to do is going to automatically trigger our deployments, which later down the line, we're going to set up Vercel for deployments. Next, we're going to talk about Vercel. So Vercel is a cloud platform, very interestingly, created by the same team behind Next.js. It's designed to make deploying Next.js apps seamless and fast. It's going to help us handle builds, scaling, global content delivery. So our app is optimized and accessible worldwide with minimal setup. But of course, I could tell you this, why not just show you? Okay, so here's the Vercel website if you want to go take a look for yourself. From localhost to HTTPS in seconds. Obviously, right now, this is where we are, but we want to go here, right? So I'm going to go to where I'm logged in. Okay, so if you don't have a Vercel account, I would encourage you to create one. Again, this is an optional step. You don't have to do it. So when you create one, you might have to create a project. I don't really remember. But then there should be a place where you can click on add new project. Okay. Then you're going to have to connect your GitHub. In this case, I have. There's a place that says add the GitHub account. So you should do that if you haven't. And then it's going to show us our repository from that GitHub. In this case, this is the one we just created, portfolio sites. So we're going to click on import. We're going to leave everything as is the Next.js preset. The root directory is going to be this, and we're just going to click on deploy. So what this is going to do is going to take the Next.js app in that repository and it's going to deploy it to a site that we can share, or we can send to friends and family. We just want to take a look at the app. Now it's deploying, and now we wait. Nice. As you can see, our application is deployed. So let's say continue to dashboard. Good. Seems like we have a couple of links. Let's check them out. Let's click on the, let's say domains. Click on this link. Oh, it shows us the application we have. Interesting. Hello world. So as you can see, we do have this now on HTTPS. And just to show you how easy this is, any change we make, let's say we change, let's say no more hello to world, and then let us push this change we just made. So we're going to stage it. We're going to say tests, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and commit it. We're going to sync our changes. Click OK. And then we're going to see if we go back to Vercel, we're going to see if we go to deployments, we're going to see a new deployment is going on just because we pushed to GitHub. And when the deployment is done, it should have our latest changes. So this is going to be very beneficial because any change we make, we can easily push it up to our application. And down the line, we can connect this to our personal, let's say we buy a URL, right? You can connect this and it's going to be your website link. So we're going to wait for this build to finish. Perfect. As you can see, it says ready. So if we go back to the link we already had open and we just refresh it, we can see no more hello world. And this is wonderful. So any new changes we push to GitHub, we can it's directly deployed automatically. Okay, so before we continue, let us set up our AI assistant. Of course, this is optional. So if you like to fly solo, that is totally fine too. Okay, so let's go to extensions. I'll be using VS Code, by the way. And in extensions, let's look for client. which is the AI assistant we'll be using. So as you can see, we have the client here. Of course, you have to click install. I already have it installed, so I don't need to do that. And then we're going to have this icon appear here. So if I click on client and then I go to settings just to set it up. In the AI provider, we're going to be making use of OpenAI. So I've selected OpenAI. The other providers, if you want to take a look, and you can decide which one to use, but I've decided to use OpenAI. So you can choose which one you want, and it should be the same process. Okay, now we have to get that API key. So how do we do that? I mean, you could have guessed, right? We have to go to OpenAI. So you go create an account, log in, and I think here, if you click on settings, that's how I got to this page. You click on API keys, and then it takes you to the API keys page. So we create a new secret key. You can type in an optional name, select the project. I just put default project. I usually leave the permissions as all, but if for some reason you want to restrict it, you can do that. I'm just going to leave it as all. And then you can click create secret key. Of course, I already have some keys, so I don't have to do that. Okay, when you have your key, go back to client, then paste it in, and then we can select our model. So I've selected GPT-5. You can select any model you want. There are a lot of them. But right now, I think GPT-5 is the latest the recording of this video. So I've selected GPT-5, and then there should be a button to save it first, then click done. Okay. So now we have that done. But okay, let's talk about permissions. So you can choose what permissions to give client. Here I've enabled auto approve. I've also allowed client to read my project files, edit my project files, execute save commands, use the browser, use MCP servers. So you can decide what permissions you want to give client. Just I guess based on how comfortable you are. And then the next step is the two different modes. So there's a plan mode and there's an act mode. Let's talk about them. So the plan mode is like, how do I put it? The model, it first thinks through the steps, then it creates a solution outline before writing code. So this mode lets you have a conversation with AI. Let's say you wanted to implement a feature, so you can have a back and forth, and through each step, you guys are trying to come up with a plan on what the AI should do or should implement. And then the act mode is when the AI goes on to implement it, right? You can also start off in act mode right away, where you just tell the AI something and it goes on and does it. It doesn't really come up with a plan. I mean, it tells you what it's going to do, and then it goes and does it. Okay, so enough talking. Let's see this in action. If I just close this, okay, we're on the app.csx file. Let's say I wanted to change this text to hello world, right? So I would say change. I don't even have to tell it the file. I'll just say change this to hello world. And it's an act mode, so it's going to go ahead and do it. By the way, you can just click to toggle. So this is plan mode, this is act mode. So if I click this, it should go and find this text, which is in the app.tsx file, and it should change it to hello world, because that's what I've asked it to do. So as you can see, it tells us what it's doing, and it tells us how much it costs. So this costs 0.0187 cents. So as you can see, it's reading our page.tsx file. Okay. And it's gone and changed the text. So you can see client wants to edit the file, so edited it. It's changed the text. Okay, and then it tells us task completed, right? The text has been updated in this page. No more hello world was replaced with hello world. Verify by rereading the file, the current context reflects. Okay, so that's good. So you can also click see new changes to see the diff. So you can see what it did. Change this line to this line. And yeah, so as you can see, it's very helpful. Obviously, this is a small task, but you can imagine if how useful this can be in bigger, more complex tasks. So we're going to make use of client through the project, and hopefully you can see the benefit in it. Guys, so let us look at the application we're going to build in terms of, well, what pages are we going to build? What routes are we going to build? So if we, well, we go to the menu, we can see we have a home page, which is this page. We have projects page, what's all the projects, work history page, skills page, education page. So in total, it looks like we have 5 pages, right? But then we have to ask ourselves, what is going on here? How come, well, we call this pages, but it looks like this is consistent throughout the pages. So no matter the page we go to, we still have the About Me section there. But then we also notice the route is changing, right? So we know that it's different routes, right? Different pages, but then it looks like it's just one page. And um, and these are just components that are changing. But that's not the case. So to further understand what's going on, we need to discuss 2 files, and these are called the layout file and the page file. So what's the layout file? A layout file defines shared UI elements like headers, navigation, or footers. In our case, this About Me section is the shared element across multiple pages. Each page file is rendered inside the layout as children, okay? So each page file is rendered inside the layout. So you can see these are pages and they're being rendered inside this layout. So that's why when we change the page, it looks like it's being rendered inside alongside the About Me section, right? So this is a layout. Okay. Meaning the layout wraps the page content while keeping the overall structure the same, which is exactly what's going on. So what is the page file? A page file in Next.js represents a route in your application, and its file name directly maps to the URL path. We're going to see much of this later on. For example, in the app directory, if we see a file page.js, in our case .tsx, it just becomes slash, right? Because there's no folder inside the app, and the page file is returned, which is the component. Again, we're going to learn more about this later, but this is what's happening. It's where you define the main content for that route, and when rendered, it's displayed inside the parent layout file, if one exists. Okay, so now we've seen the website, we've learned in theory anyways what layout and page files are. Let's look at it in practice. So as you can see, in the app directory, which we're going to consider as the root directory, we have this layout.tsx. And if we open the file, we see we have these are fonts. Then is where we define the page metadata. So we have the title and the description of the page. So if we go here, we see the title, create next app. Here, create next app, right? And then we can see it exports a component called root layout. And this component takes a child, well, it takes children, which is a React node. And then it wraps the children inside the HTML and body tag, right? So what are these children? Just as we learned, the children is the page. So if we go to the page.tsx, we can see hello world, right? So the content of this page is displayed inside this layout in here. So to further prove that, if I put here, I am layout, and we go to our file, we can see we have the I am layout displayed before the hello world, which is coming from the page file. So this is how, just to get rid of this error, I'll refresh again. Okay, so this is how it works. So the layout file is kind of think about it like, well, basically a layout, and then the content of the page is displayed inside it. And since this layout file is located in the app directory, which is our root directory, we can consider this the global layout file. Each subdirectories could also have their own layout files. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let us talk about routes. I mean, we've kind of already discussed how many routes we have. So we know we have the home, then projects, work history, skills, education. So how does routes work in Next.js anyways? Routing is file-based. That's what we have to know, meaning the folder and file structure inside the app or pages directory automatically defines your app routes. In this case, we're going to be using app routing, right? So kind of just ignore this pages directory. For example, creating a file like app, which is the folder, then there's an about folder, and in there's a page.js, generates /about route without needing an external library such as React Router. Next.js also supports nested routes through nested folders, allowing you to build complex URL structures easily. Additionally, you can create dynamic routes using bracket syntax. For example, if you have like an ID, you can name the folder bracket ID, which lets us generate pages for variables like user profiles, blog posts, etc. Okay, so I kind of prepared this just to show you guys an example. This is the app folder, which is the root, right? And then there's a page.tsx, which this .tsx is just the extension. It means we're using TypeScript. And so this is going to result in the route of just slash. We can also call this like the home route or root route. Okay, then let's say a scenario where we have nested folders like this nested folder about, and then it returns its own page.tsx. So it's going to be slash, then about. So the folder name is the name of the route. Then if there's a folder called education, it's going to be slash education. And of course, the root or the app folder returns its own page.tsx. So in that case, that will just be slash. So if you visit slash, we're going to return the component that is returned from this page. If you visit slash about, we're going to return the component returned from this page. And then the same thing for education. So you can also have nested routes. So for example, inside about, we can say, maybe we want to say about projects with an ID. So it's going to be slash about, then slash the ID, right? Again, the folder name is the name of the route. But in this case, it's not going to be ID, it's going to be whatever the ID is. Of course, the about will return its own page. So if we go to slash about, we're going to return the component from here, and etc. Okay, so now we've kind of have a rough idea of just how routes work, at least theoretically. Let's go to practice. Okay, so we already know that if we visit slash, we're getting what's returned in here. So which will be hello world. So if I go to our running project, so it's going to be hello world. And the layout is showing I am layouts. So we can get rid of this. We don't need this. Okay. So how do we create routes for, we need projects, we need work history, we need, so work history will be work dash history. We need skills and we need education. Okay, let's get started. We can start from projects. So inside the app, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it projects. And inside projects, we're going to make a new file called page.tsx. Then I'm going to use a shorthand to create the component. So the component you return, the name of the component, well, it can be page, but it can also be anything. So let's call it, I'll call it project. Good. So if we go, actually in here, I'll say I am the projects page. Good. So now if we go back to our application and we visit slash projects, we get I am the projects page. And if we visit a route that doesn't exist, we're going to get 404, this page is not found. So that shows that our routing is working. Okay, so we have how many more pages to make? Work history, skills, and education. We can go on and do the same thing. So we can create another project, create the pages at the project, etc., etc. Or we can use AI. Let us go ahead and create the other routes we need. So I'm going to click on climb, and I'm going to put it in act mode straight away. Let us type in the tags or what we want it to do. So I would say, I want you to create these routes. So it will be skills, work history, education, and let's go back to the application. Education, skills, work history. We already created projects. So I guess we just need 3 more. Okay, so that's it. Put the and over here. Good. And just to be more descriptive, we can tell you that a route is created by adding a folder into the app folder. Then in the folder, in that folder, I guess, you create a page.tsx file that returns a basic React component. This should work, so let's press go and then we'll wait. Perfect. So we see task completed. As you can see, it created a new file. And so for skills, then it created another one for work history. I don't know why I had to read this file. I don't know why I had to edit this file. Actually, let's go and see the changes it made. Okay. So I think this change we made ourselves. And then it made this one. This one we made ourselves. It made this one and it made this one. Nice. Let's just test that and see if we go to our project. So if we go to skills, go to see the skills page. If we go to work history, you see our work history page. And if we go to education, nice. Let's test our projects that we made. Good. And go back home. Perfect. So all the routes are working. That's good. Next, let us look into the page metadata. So to start, let's look at the icon. So for icons, I got my icon from icon 8. Yeah, so I got my icon from icon 8. And if I type in website, let's see if I can still find it. Okay, look, you just have to trust me on this, right? It's somewhere here, I believe. But I've provided the icon for you, and what I want you to do is just go and drop the icon into the app directory. So you can name it favicon.ico. And what happens is automatically Next.js look for an icon or something named favicon.ico, and it uses that as the favicon. So since I've done that, so if I click on this, you can see the website icon, and you can see my icon is showing right here. So you can choose whatever icon you want. That's the one I've chosen, and then just name it favicon.ico. I don't even know if it's pronounced ico, and it should show up right here. Okay, so that's for the favicon. Let us look into the page metadata title and description. So if I should right click on the page and I click on inspect, let us go into the elements tab. And if I look at the head, we can see in the title, we have Joe Doremi, which is what is showing up here. Dash home, and then we can see the description, my portfolio website. So the question is, where is this coming from? So if you remember, we've talked about the layout file. And as you can see, the layout file, it returns something called metadata, which is responsible for changing what it shows in the title and description. So for example, right now our shows create next app, which we don't want it to show. So you can put your name right here. I would say be the dev. And we can just put home. For description, I would just say my awesome pots, I cannot spell, portfolio site. Good. Now let's go and see. Nice. As you can see, it's showing. So if I inspect and I go to the elements, head, nice. You can see it's showing right here. So the metadata, it's responsible for more than just title and description. If you hold down your command, or let's say on Windows, hold down Control, and just click on metadata, well, this one, which is the interface. So you can see we can return metadata base. You can read what it's about. You can return the title, which we did, description, which we did. You can return application name. You can return authors, etc., etc. The list goes on. So just to give you an idea, if you want to take a deeper dive into what else the metadata can do. Okay, so now we've done that. We have the name and we have the description set. Let us look at how we can make this name dynamic. So I've provided two files called skills.csx, and I've also provided another file, which is text.csx. Let us start from the text. So I've created a text file, which contains basically all the information our website will need. So I have an about me section, which is like the left section, and it holds our name, our title, our description, and other text we need. So it has the project section, which holds our projects, education section, which holds our education history, and etc. So this text is also going to be used for our language translation. So that's why I've provided an English text. And if we go down, let's just scroll. Okay, our French text too. So the same text that are in English, we have them in French. And I have an interface at the top just to make sure that both languages are using exactly what they need. Basically, how I created this was with AI. So I had to tell AI to make dummy data of like dummy projects, dummy education, etc., etc. So just to give you an idea of what you can do with AI, this is another thing. So just to kind of speed up development. Okay, so that's the text. So the skills file, it's basically just the same thing. I used AI. I told it about the React icons library, which we need to install. So if I go there, React icons, this is it, by the way. It's an icon library for React. Who could have guessed? And what you can do is, if you scroll down, you can see the installation. So we can just copy the installation and we can go and paste that in. And we can run the command just so we get rid of the squiggly lines or the error that arises because you can't find it, right? Okay, now we wait. Good. So now that's done. So the errors have disappeared. Good. So that's the skill. And the reason why we need this file is because if we go to our text.tsx, I think in the project section, yeah, some projects are using the technologies. HTML, SAS, TypeScript, etc., which is coming from the skills file, right? So we have different sections for each skill. Well, it has the skill name, then it has the name, it has the icons, normal and large. We have the type, so we have front end. And if you go down, you can see skills for backend, etc., etc., and different colors, right? Okay, so make sure you have those two files inside a utils directory, or I guess you can name this whatever you want. And then you make sure you have your favicon.ico in the app directory. So if we go back to the layout file, we can then use a template string, right? Because now we can say, if we go to texts, okay. So since we just want to use our name, we don't really care whether it's in English or French, since your name will be the same in both places. So we can say English, okay, English text dot about me dot name. And then we can just put this, should be the home page. Good. If we go here, since for some reason the server stopped working. Okay, I'm just going to rerun the server here. npm run dev. Okay, looks like the server is back up. I had to restart it, and it's working. Good. We have the title working, and description is there, and the icon is there. Okay, guys, so what is next? I would say we should talk about themes. And for that, to start, I've provided a theme.ts file, and I want you to take that file and put it inside the utils folder. Let's talk about the context of the file. So the file, it has an interface called iTheme. It has a light theme and a dark theme. So since both of them are typed with the iTheme interface, they both have to have these colors. So black, white, primary color, the light version. We have a gray color, background color, and text color. So they all have the same thing. Okay, then we export an object theme that have both the light and the dark themes. Okay, and since we're using styled components, we have to install styled components. So we go to the styled components website. This is the installation command, and we can just paste it in there. So I've already done that, but you should go ahead and do it. Okay, after installing styled components, let's talk a bit about interfaces, just in case you don't have an idea of how it works or this is your first time using TypeScript. So an interface is kind of like a contract that says anybody that signs this contract, in this case, the light and the dark theme, they have to follow these rules, which is have all these variables. So if I should go to any theme and let's say I comment out the text color, you can see complaints and it says property text color is missing. That's because we're not following the rules of the interface, which we've agreed upon here. So I'm going to uncomment that back. And if you want to learn more about TypeScript, I have a course for it. So we use TypeScript and we build a clone of YouTube. And also, if you want to learn about styled components, you have to take my styled component course where we build Pinterest clone. Okay, back to business. Now we've installed styled components, we still get this error, invalid module name in augmentation. Modules TypeScript cannot be found. Okay, so we need to install the type definition file for styled components. And we can do this by saying npm install at types / styled components. Good. We've installed the type definition file. Let's see if this goes away in a second. Just check that the installation worked. At type styled components, we have that. Okay, let's close the file and open it again. And the error is still there. Let's try reloading our window. Okay, and the issue is still there. Okay, so we can go ahead and ignore this issue for now. And let us start setting up our themes. So in the layout, which is where our application is going to be, we can go ahead and wrap the application in something called the theme provider. Then we put the children inside the theme provider. And now we get an error. It says it's missing the property theme. So let's go ahead and provide the property. So theme is going to be equals to theme, which we exported from utils. So this, and I can see the error is gone. So that's good. Finally kicked in. Okay, so let's use the light theme for now. So you can say theme dot light. And as you can see, we get an autocomplete. Well, obviously, because it knows the object has a light and a dark theme. So theme dot light. And if we go to our page, we see this error, which is perfect. So I wanted us to run into this error because this is an error you're going to run into a lot, or maybe not a lot once you get used to it. But you're going to see this error at least once in Next.js development. So it says create context only works in client components. We should add the use client directive at the top of the file. What does that even mean? Okay, so let's learn a bit about server and client components. And I've created this beautiful table just to give us an idea. So when rendering happens, in server components, it's rendered on the server into HTML and lightweight instructions, while on client components, it's rendered in the browser using JavaScript. Can they render each other? So server components can render client components inside them, right? But client components cannot render server components. They can only receive what was already prepared. There are workarounds to this, but for the but just by default, client components cannot render server components. Data handling. Server components, we can fetch data on the server, pass it down to the child client components, and then client components cannot fetch server-only resources directly. They must rely on props from server components. Results sent to the browser. Server components output mostly HTML, while client components output interactive JavaScript. Then import statements, which is what I want us to pay attention to. So by default, server components are the default in Next.js app router, right? No special directives needed. While client components, we must include the use client at the top of the file. So this is what I really want us to pay attention to, which is what this error is kind of talking about. So client components are the components we're already used to in React. So they can use hooks, like use state, use context, which is the issue we're having here, right? Create context. Behind the scenes, it uses use context in styled components. But by default, the components in Next.js are server components, right? Which cannot use hooks. So that is the issue we're running into here. So in the layout, by default, the layout is a server component. But then by adding this theme provider here, we're trying to use, well, behind the scenes anyway, we're trying to use create context, which is a hook. And it's telling us we can't do that in server components. So what does that mean? Okay, like we learned here, we know that server components can render client components inside of them. So that's the trick we're going to do. We're going to have to move this theme provider logic into a client component, and then we're going to bring the client component here and use it here. So we're going to do that in the next video. So we're still stuck on this error, and like we discussed, we'll have to create a new component where we're going to move this logic there. Okay, so let's talk a bit about folder structure. The app is kind of a routing folder. So for example, dedication is a route, projects is a route, skills, work history, etc. So we'll kind of made a new folder called components, and let's put it outside of the app folder, so inside the source directory. Let's call this folder components, which would hold all our components. That's good. And inside here, let us create a new folder called, what should it be called? Let's call it app wrapper. And then inside there, let's create a new file called app wrapper.tsx. That's good. Now inside here, I'm going to use the shorthand to generate and export a React component called app wrapper. And this app wrapper is what we want to put in here. So we kind of want to move this logic inside there. So we can copy that and paste it in here. We need to, of course, import team provider. We need to import team here. And then we need children. So we need to take a prop called children and then let us type it. So let's create an interface called app wrapper, and it's gonna need to take, sorry, I don't know what that was. That was a bad auto import. So it's going to take children, and actually, since we're only taking children, we don't really need an interface here. Let us just type it in here, and we're going to say children is just going to be of type React node. That's good. Which, if we hover over this, we can see the type here is React node. Okay, so since we have app wrapper set up to take in children, what we need to do is we can just replace this team provider with the app wrapper. I'm going to correct my closing tag. Nice. Now I'll clear this unused import team and team provider. Let's go back to application and see if it worked. Refresh. Create context only works in client components. Okay, this is good. So if you remember again, client by default, all components are server components. So here we can put use client at the top. And what this does is it converts this server component into a client component. Now you could have asked, why not just put use client up here in the layout.tsx file? But what that's going to do is, actually, let's make sure this works first. Nice. So we can say it works now. But if we were to, let's say, let me comment this line out. You don't have to do this, but we still have to return children. Okay. But let's still return children. So the app works. So let's say we put use client at the top here. Let's see what happens. We start getting issues with our metadata, and then it's just going to result in other issues. So we will have to maybe move this metadata out, and then it's going to cause more issues. So there's a kind of a best practice where the top components in the tree should be server components. So we wouldn't want to do this like making the layout a client component. So it's always best to just move the client components down the tree. So let us remove this, and let's bring back our app wrapper, sorry. So we'll uncomment this out, and now we have the application working. Okay, so this is good. So we can create a style sheet for our app wrapper. So I'll call it app wrapper .styles.tsx, and this would have our style components, which we're going to look at in the next video. Guys, okay, so we've set up our team, and we've even passed in light team into our application. But then how do we even know it's working? I mean, you can take my word for it, right? I'm a really trustworthy person, and you can just believe me that it's working. But let's go ahead and use it. And I would say a good place to use it is when we set up our global styles, which is one of the first things we should do before we continue building our application. And global styles is where we clear the margin, clear the padding, and all that good stuff. So in the app wrapper styles file that we created, we can create a new style. So we can call it global style, and it's going to use something called a create global style, which style components exports. Yeah, so style component lets us do that. So we can say create global styles. So you can see from style components. So it's going to automatically import it from style components. And inside the template string, we can pass in the styles we want to add. So in the HTML body, we're going to select everything. This might be overkill, but this is just what I do. We're going to select everything before, and then we'll select everything after. Okay, then in there, we're going to say margin is equals to 0. We're going to say padding is equals to 0. What else? We're going to say border is equals to none. Box sizing, set box sizing to border box. I usually set this to important because I find sometimes it doesn't really apply. Font size, we're going to be using our view width for fonts. So we can say the default font size would be 0.93, which is what I found looks good. 0.93 view width. And font family, we're just going to say inherit. Perfect. And then for the page, I don't want any scroll, so we can set say WebKit. By the way, this is just default. I'm sure you have your way of clearing defaults in the web. So we can say WebKit, scroll bar. I'll set the width to 0 because I don't want, I don't know, it just looks a bit, for me anyways. You can leave the scroll bar if you want. So we can say width is 0. Background, we just set it to transparent. Okay. One last thing for the text, for all the text. So this the link, the paragraph. We can say H1, H2, span, div, button. I don't know if I missed anyone, but we can just say color. It's equals to. Now we want to use the theme. For now, let's say white. Actually black, because we're using the default white theme for now, which the background will be white, right? So we want the color to be black. Okay, let us now apply this global style in our app wrapper, and we can do that by just putting it in here since it's a component, and now that should apply. So if we refresh, okay, let's see what the issue is. Click on this. Oh, it's hydration issues. So this is another issue you're going to probably run into. A tree hydrated by some attributes and several blah 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 blah. This usually sometimes is just a mistake. So if you refresh again, as you can see, it's gone. So we're not really making use of the theme. So in the app wrapper, let's say background color, it's equals to, now we have to use the theme. So how we use it is in here in start components, you can open these braces, and then we get the probs. So we can then say the props inside the function. So it's going to be an inline function, and it's going to return. We can then use the props, which would hold our theme. So you can see we have the autocomplete theme. In the theme, we get a background And yeah, I think that should work. But now we're using the light theme. So if we go to app wrapper, let's change this to the dark theme. And now the background should be black. Good. So now we know our theme is working and it's being passed correctly. And our global styles is working because we applied that to the global styles. But we don't want this here. Rather, what we want is we want the text color rather than black. We want to use what we just used. So again, the inline braces, we'll say props, return props dot theme dot text color. Nice. So if we refresh this, since it's a dark theme, the color is a bit lighter. But if we go back and change this to a light theme, the color is going to be black. Okay, so this is nice. We've been able to set up global styles, and looks like it's working. And while we're still on the topic of theme, I'm thinking let us, instead of changing this manually to light to dark, let us store this theme in a state. So we can use themes, we can use use states, which we already know. And we can do that again because we have the use client here, somewhere in the client component. So we can call it theme, and then we say the function is going to be called set theme. It's going to be equals to use state. Bring it in from React. So again, sometimes when I have to just use the autocomplete, I just press tab, which auto imports. So make sure you're importing use state from React. And obviously it's going to be, the theme is either going to be light or dark. So we can just, for default, we'll start it off as light. And then we're going to type it in line, and we can say it's going to be light or dark. That's good. So then we can use this theme in here. That's good. And let's use the set theme. So let's create a function called const toggle theme, which we're not going to be using right now, but we can just set it up while we're here. So it's a function that is going to be responsible for toggling this theme between light or dark. So we're going to say set theme, open up the function. So we're going to say if theme is equals to light, then we want to switch it to a dark theme, else we want it to be a light theme. And we're not going to make use of this right now, but we will do down the line. Okay, so now we've set up themes and global style. Let's go to the next part and start working on the application. As you can see, this is the page of the app. And on the left side, we have the About Me section. And then the right side, we have what we can call it the contents, because this is where the pages show, right? But even as on page change, the About Me section or the left side stays the same. So what's really going on here? So as you can see, this is what's going on. We have the layout, remember, right? And on the layout, we have the About Me section on the left, which kind of stays the same. And then on the right, we have the children, which is why when we switch routes, the children are showed on the right. We can call this section the About Me section, and then we can call this section contents container, I guess. And all this will be inside the app wrapper. Okay, let's go ahead and start implementing that. So in the app wrapper, we can, in there, we can put in or create a new, actually, before that, let's create the components in the style sheet. So in app wrapper.styles, we can say export const, let's call it app container. It's going to be equals to styled, which comes from styled components. So as you can see, I've imported it automatically. And it's going to be a div. Again, if you want to learn about styled components, you really should take my course on the styled components that we use to create a Pinterest clone. It's going to teach you about styled components, how to use it, different ins and outs of it, and etc. Okay, so we're going to say the width is going to be 100 view width. We're going to say the height would be 100 VH. We're going to give it a display of grid because I want things side by side. We're going to say grid template columns would be the left side, let's give it 25%. The right side for the contents, let's give it 75%. And we'll say grid template columns, rows would be 100% since we just kind of have one row. Let's say the background colors, give the background color of, we can just copy this from here, and we need theme.background. Okay, that's good. So this is the app container. So now we have it, let's go ahead and use it. So we can say app container, and we're going to put our children inside there. So if we go to the page, okay, we don't really see it working now, but if we, let's say I change the theme to dark, we should see the color changes. So we know the app container is working because the app container is what has the background, right? Okay, so the app container just has, while it's displaying only this, is because it's displaying what comes back from our page, in this case, home, right? So if we were to create a new component, let's create the About Me section. So in the components, let's create a new folder called About Me. And in there, let's create a file called About Me.tsx. And in there, let's export a React component. React arrow function component. So this is a shortcut I use. And I'll just say it About Me section. Then in here, just before the children, so it's going to be on the left, let us import the About Me section. It's good. And now as you can see, the About Me section is on the left, and then we have the page on the right. So if we were to navigate to education, good. So we see the About Me section stays on the left, and then the education is on the right. So this is exactly what we need. Okay, let's create something called a content container, which would wrap the contents of the pages. So we can go back to our app wrapper style sheet. I can duplicate this one. So a shorthand in VS Code is, if you copy it, you can hold Shift Option and then the down key. So it's going to duplicate whatever I copied downwards. In here, we'll call it content container, and it's going to be a div. We're going to remove all the styles. We'll leave the width 100. We're going to give it a padding. What's the issue here? Cannot redeclare box. Okay, so I guess TypeScript hasn't caught up because we changed the name, so that should clear in a second. So we can say padding. Padding should be 0 for the top, 0 for the right, 0 for the bottom. But on the left, because we have this menu that we're going to have in the future, we're going to give it a 2.5 view width of padding. And then obviously we want the overflow to scroll. So we can say overflow, scroll. It's good. So for some reason, the TypeScript error is still there. And we can fix that by reloading the window. So if I hold Command P, well, in your case, if you're using Windows, if you Control P, then the greater sign symbol, you can type in developer reload window, but I already have it here, so I'll just click on this. And sometimes this fixes the TypeScript issues. Just going to give it a second to load. And it looks like that's fixed. Okay, so now we have the contents container. We can bring it in the app wrapper. And what I want to do is I want to wrap the children inside that. So I'm going to import it, and I'm going to put the children inside the content container. That's good. And just to make sure it's actually showing, we can just give the content container a default background color of red. Okay, so it looks like the page is working, and this is very good until I noticed we have this weird scroll going on here. If we look into the contents container, the weight is meant to be 100%, not 100 view width. So we change this to 100%. Let's go back and see, and now everything looks good. Perfect. Okay, guys. So before we continue to the About Me section, there's something we have to set up, and that is the language. So as you can see, we already know that the theme is affected, well, the whole app is affected by a theme change, right? But the whole app, to some degree, is also affected by a language change. For the theme, we already have, if we go to the app wrapper, we already have styled components taking care of the theme provider, which provides the theme to the entire application. But then, how do we provide the language to the entire application? Does that sound familiar? Well, it sounds like we need a global state to store the language. So for global states, you can use different options. You can use Jotai, you can use Redux, or you can just use old-fashioned use context, which is what we're going to use. So let us try to set up context. First, we need to store the language. So we're going to use state language set language. Then we're going to say use state, and by default we're going to set it to, let's set it to English to start, and then we're going to type the state in line, and we're going to say it can either be English or French. That's good. Okay, now we have the language. Let's create a toggle to change the language. So we can just copy the toggle for the theme. We're going to say toggle language. We're going to say if language is equals to French, then we want to change it to English, else we want it to be French. That's good. So now we have the language, we have a way to toggle the language. We have to pass it, well, we have to wrap everything inside the provider, our app context provider. Before we create our app context, we just need to fix this. So it's still trying to use set theme when it should use set language. Nice. So the error is gone. Okay, let's create our context. Let's do that outside the app wrapper. So we can say export const app context. And it's going to be equals to create context, which comes from React. So this one. Okay. Then let us type what our context will be. So to type that, let's create an interface and say I app context. So for now, we can just say the context should have or should have theme, which is going to be of type I theme, right? Which comes from our utils, if you remember. We can say, let's pass in the toggle theme, which that's just going to be a function that returns void. What else? We can pass, we want to pass the language text, right? So let's say, actually, let's pass current language. So current language, which is going to be this. So it's going to be of type, we can just copy this type, paste it in here. What else? We want to pass in, okay, toggle language. Why not? It's already here. Toggle language is going to be similar to toggle theme. So it's just going to be a function that returns void. And we want to pass in something called language text. So it's going to be the current selected language, so all the text. So if we go to the text file, it's either going to be English text or it's going to be French text. So depending on which is selected, and they're both going to have this interface, this. So we can copy this interface name. We go here, we can say language text, and it's going to be of this type. And we just import it in. That's good. And then we can use this in our app context to create our app context. It's either going to be this or it's going to be null, which it will be on load, right? So on load, we can just start it off as null or as no, depending on how you pronounce that. Okay, so now we have our app context. We can say, we can wrap our function or our return and return the app context dot provider. And then we can move everything inside. That's good. So we have it's complaining that we're missing the property value. That's correct. Let's pass in the value. So what is the value? The value is going to be an object. So we can create it outside here actually. So we can say const, let's say app context value. And it's going to be an object and it's going to have all these properties that is listed in here. So we can say the theme, right? Just put the theme is going to be equals to theme. So we don't need to do the key value pair. Remember in JavaScript, if the name and if the key and the value are the same, we can just shorthand it to this. So we can say theme. Actually, that will be theme name, right? That will be theme name. Okay, so the theme actually is going to be theme, right? And then the current selected theme, which will be this, right? And then we can say theme type. Let's call it theme type. So theme type is then going to be, we can just say it's a string of lights, or that actually we have it here. Let's just copy it from here and paste it. So this is the theme type. So we can pass that in. So let's say theme type is going to be theme. Okay, then we have theme, which would be the theme, which would be either the light or the dark theme. So it's going to be an object of either the light or the dark theme. So we have the theme, we have the theme type. We need to pass language text. So this one, language text. And language text is going to be equals to language. And it's going to be the current selected language. So this. So if the current selected language is EN, it's going to give us the, if I go back to my text, it's going to give us the English text, right? Because if we go all the way down, sorry, yeah, so EN will return the English text and FR will return the French text. So we have the language text, we have toggle language, or toggle theme first, then we can pass in toggle language. We can pass in the theme type. Do we have that? We have the theme type. Do we have current language? Okay, we can also say current language because we might need this somewhere in the app. And the current language will just be language, say EN or FR. Okay, then we can use this value in here. And now the whole application should have access to all these values. So right now, the language and the theme and the ability to change them. Okay, we're going to use that next time in the next app to start building our About Me section. Let us create the About Me section. So we have the image, which has these social links. Then we have name, title, description, and then some buttons. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First off, let's remove this background color red in the app wrapper styles, and let's change the theme to light. I just prefer lighter theme. Okay, it's a better look. Okay, if we go to the About Me section, I've provided an aboutme.details.tsx file, and basically this is just it exports these social links. So you can choose what social links you want, but for here I've just put in GitHub, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Medium. Medium is a place where you can write articles. So let's say you write articles about being a developer or whatever. So of course in the href, put your link to your GitHub page and LinkedIn and etc. So yes, so just go ahead, put that in the About Me folder, and let's go to the About Me section. Let us create a new file called aboutme.styles.tsx. Now in there, let us export cons. We're going to call it about me container. It's going to be equals to styled. So we want the styled from styled components. It's going to be a div, and we open our template strings. So in there, we can say display should be flex. We want the flex direction to be column. We want justify contents to be centered. We want line items to be centered. Give it a gap of 1 view width. And we want the position to be relative. So the reason we want a relative position is because later on we're going to have to kind of position this element, which is inside the About Me section. Okay, so now we have this About Me container. Let us use it in the components. So we can replace it with the div, and let's import it. That's good. Now it's centered. This is perfect. Okay, so if we look, this is kind of split in 2 sections. So the first section being this part, which includes the name, and then this other part, which includes the description and the buttons. So let us create these subsections inside the About Me container. We put in a div. Rather than starting with the image, let us start off with the easy part. So the name and the title. So we can create, say, h1, which would be the name, and then we can duplicate this and say h2. So it's going to be h2, which would be the title. So let's give them both class names. Sorry, class name equals to name, and the second one will be title. By the way, how I was able to put my cursor in 2 places is if you put your cursor in a place, then hold command and put it in another place. No, hold option and put it in another place, and you can type in both places. So it's kind of a shortcut I use. Okay, so we want the name to actually come from, where is the app wrapper? To come from the language text. If you remember, we're passing it to every component inside our app. So in the About Me section, we want to access this language text, which would be, it will have the language text for English or French, depending on our selection. So how do we access that? If we go back to the About Me section, we can use context, which comes from React. So I've imported that. And then we need the context we want to use. In this case, we want to use the app context. That's good. So if you remember, if we go to app wrapper, this is the app context that we're using that we created. Nice. So we can then destructure the language text from there by saying const. We're going to get language text, but as you can see, we're not getting the autocomplete. And this is because language text can be either app context, which is the value, or it can be null. But we know if we're in here, it's not null, so we can force TypeScript to not treat it as null. So let's try this again. See, now we get the autocomplete. So we want the language text. That's good. Now let's use it. So the language text has a section called About Me, and then we want the name, and then we can copy this, and then we'll change this to title. That's good. Let's see what we have so far. Nice. So we have the name, and then we have the title. But I can see for some reason it doesn't look like it's being centered. So let's fix that. So if we go to the About Me section, we can style the class name. Let's say text align center. Let's give it a font size. So let's give it a font size of 1.9 view width. And let's do the same for the title. So the title is going to have a font size of 1.7 view width. We still want the text align to be center. I want it to be a bit lighter, so we're going to say opacity is going to be, let's say, 0.6. I'm going to give it a font weight of bold. Let's see how it looks. Good. Okay, this is a lot better. But then it's apparent that we need to talk about fonts in Next.js. And that's going to be our next topic. But before that, let's see if we can add some. Actually, let's leave margin to the next part. Okay, so now let us add the fonts. If we go to our layout.csx file, we can see we already have a couple of fonts added for us by default. So these fonts are guessed. I don't know how to pronounce this, but you get the point. So the fonts come from Google Fonts, so next/fonts/Google. So if we go to Google Fonts, let us actually check for that font that I don't know how to pronounce. Okay, as you can see, this is it. You can use this font if you want, but in my opinion, I feel like we have better fonts. So for this project, I have chosen a font called Salsa, you know, like salsa dancing, and another cool font called Jim Nightshade. I don't know who Jim is, but probably a cool guy. Okay, so let's go ahead and use those fonts rather than these fonts, okay? Okay. So we can change this, so we can get rid of this, and then we're gonna bring in Jim. We get an autocomplete, so Jim Nightshade, and then we're gonna bring in Salsa. Perfect. Okay, so for the first one, we can name it Jim Nightshade, and then we want the weight. So this object, you can take, you can set the weight that you want. So we want the weight of 400. That's good. And then we'll do the same thing for the salsa one. And we want the same weight. So we can just copy this and paste it here. That's good. So just for curiosity, let us log Jim Nightshade just to see what we get. Okay. So if we go to application and we go to the console tab, we can see it's still loading for some reason. Okay, while it loads, let's look at something else. Let's actually go ahead and fully use it. Actually, my bad. So we can copy Jim Nightshade and we can replace it here. And then we want to do the same thing for salsa. We want to actually, it should be small letter G. Oh, we're not changing the name here. Okay, my bad. So this is gonna be Jim. Sorry, this is gonna be salsa. So const salsa, and then this would be, we'll just use the name, but we'll change the first letter to a small j. And that is what we want to load, want to log. And then we're going to use that here. So the small letter. So we're going to use this. So const gym nightshade, not the capital letter, right? And then here we're going to use salsa. So we're going to add both of them. Okay. Just refresh this. Nice. And one thing I want you to notice is, well, there's hydration issues, but we can just get rid of that if we refresh. Okay, that's gone. It's just old logs. One thing I wanted to notice is the log for the gym nightshade, which we thought we're going to see here, is not here. And that's further proof that this is actually a separate component, so the layout file. So it's not run on the client side. So that's why we're not seeing the logs here. But the logs is here, right? It's on the server. So as you can see, when we log gym nightshade, we get the class name, which is what we're adding here to the body. We say the font family, gym nightshade. So if we want to use it, we're going to be using this. We say the font weight that we selected, which is here. And then the font style is normal. So this is just for the proof that this component is running on the server because it's getting printed here. Okay, so now that is set up, we can go back to the About Me styles and we can tell the title to use font family. And the font family is going to be, remember, it was printed here, it's going to be this one, Gym Nightshade. Now let's see if that worked. Perfect. So as you can see, it worked. But I want the whole app to use, the font family of Salsa, which they should. Let me see. I don't think it is using Salsa. Let's see. If I go to the About Me, Salsa. Doesn't look like it is. Okay, let's go into, where is it? App wrapper the styles. And if I should tell in here, tell the whole family, type a font family. Okay, the font family is already there. So let's call it, let's say Salsa and see if that worked. Let's refresh. Okay, that looks like it worked. Perfect. Okay, so that's good. Okay, let's continue. Before that, I just want to correct something. So rather than using the dot variable, we need to use the dot class name. And then after doing that, we should go to the app wrapper styles. And we shouldn't need the font setting the font family here. It should pick it up by default. So if we refresh, nice. So we don't need that anymore. So we can get rid of it. That's good. Okay, let's continue. I think the next easy step is dealing with the description and then the buttons, before this big bad wolf. So let's do that. If we go to the About Me, and in there, let's create this another subsection, div. And then in there, we're going to create a p tag. And then it's going to be, we're going to get our description. So if we copy one of these, paste it in. So it's going to about me dot description. And let's give it a class name of summary, because this kind of a summary of who you are, what you do, etc. Okay, let's go ahead and style this. So in here, we can say dot summary. The summary is going to be, give it a text align of center. We can give it a line height of 2. I'll give it a width of 8%. Let's give it a margin of one view width. I'll give it a margin of auto on the side. Sorry, not auto. And then to view it, and then auto again. Let's see how this looks. Okay, that looks wonderful. A lot like the original. And now the buttons. So in here, let's create like a container for the buttons, and we can call it, actually let's create the styles first. So we can say export const. Let's call the styles call to action buttons is going to be equals to styled.div, and we'll open the object literals. That's good. Now let's go ahead and use it in the file. So we can say call to action buttons. Let's go ahead and import that, close the component. Then in there, we can, first of all, we can put a link. So we'll just put an A tag. And inside the A tag, it's going to be a button, because we want the download resume button. So we can say button. Then inside that button, it's going to be a text for download resume. So again, if I copy one of this, we already have the text about me.download resume. That's good. That's in the button, and in the button, the on click, we will really need to click in here. Let's save for now. So let's work on the link tag. So we can say the target is going to be, well, it's going to be blank, because we just want it to download. So we'll just say blank. And then what else do we need? We need the href, which would be the link to what we want to download. So we're going to say, I've provided, well, your resume should be put inside the public directory. So I've provided a resume, and right now it's just an empty blank sheet. Okay, so I'm going to put my resume there, resume.pdf. That's good. For the button, for now, we'll just say onClick would be equals to a function that just returns null. Okay. Do we have a class name for this button? No. Okay. So for the call to actions button, let's go ahead and style it, because right now the styles is empty. So we want them to, well, set a display flex. Then will be justify content will be center. Align items will be center. Let's give it a gap of 0.8 view width. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so that's good, and the download is working. Okay. Let us style the link. So we say the link should have, well, let's style the hover property. So in style components, you can do this to access the hover property. I will just give it an opacity of 0.7. That's good. And then in here, we can say the button should have a background color of, we'll say props. It's going to be props.theme.primary color. It's good. See how it looks. Okay. Then we're going to give it a color of, actually, you can just copy this. Going to give it a color of white. That's good. Let's give it a height of, actually I have to close this. Okay, let's set the height. Give it a height of 3 view width. Give it a padding of 0 and 1.5 view width. Give it a border radius of let's say 4 view width. See how that looks. Okay, that's good. I would like some shadow and a cursor and hover. So let's give it a box shadow. You can say 0, 8 pixels, 16 pixels. We can say RGBA. We can set that to 0, 0, 0, then 0.15, which is kind of black. Okay, we can also set the hover property again. If I copy this, so the hover property for the button, give it that opacity, and we just need to close this. Okay, so this styles the button. Nice, looks good. On hover, actually, I want the cursor to be pointer. Nice. Okay. So let's create the other two button icons. So we can, in the call to action buttons, we can kind of duplicate it. So 1, 2, but rather than buttons this time around, and this time around it's not a resume that we want to download, and we don't need targets. Instead, it's going to be href, and it's going to be an a mail. So you can put mail2, the HTML mail2, and just put in your email in here. So I'm going to say test@example.com, and then we'll set the class name to icon. So class name icon. That's good. And then it's going to be an icon which I've used high outline mail. So this one, which comes from React Icons. We can set the size to 1.5 view width, and then the color, actually this should be a string, and then the color should come from theme. So we want the color to come from the primary color of the theme. But then how do we get the theme here? Again, we're passing the theme from app wrapper, right? So passing the theme here, so we should have access to it like this, and then we can use it in here, theme.primary color. It's good. Let's see, so that's good. And then the last one, actually it has a border, so we should add the border. So we have a class name. Do we have the class name? Icon. That's good. Okay, let's go to the style, and in there we can style the icon class. So icon, and we're going to give it a border of, if I just copy this, so it's going to be 1 pixel solid. Then we can paste that in. Let's give it a height of 3 view width. Give it a width of the same thing, so I can just duplicate this. Give it a border radius of should be, you can say 100 view width. Display would reflect justify content. So justify content. Actually, we can just copy justify content and align items from here, paste it in. Okay, and that should style the icon. It's still refreshing. So while it's still refreshing, let's do the last one. So the last one is going to be for our telephone. And again, we're going to say href is going to be equals to, you want to put your tel, which is the HTML. And then you want to put your telephone in here. I'm just going to use a dummy telephone number for now. But you should put your real number because you don't want people calling you. Okay. And then we're going to use the icon fi phone And it's going to be very similar to this. So we can just copy the end part of this and paste it in. Then we need to import this from React icons. That's good. And this should work. Let's see what we got. Okay, so we get an error saying this is not from, well, it doesn't exist, and it's correct. So we have to iPhone forwarded is not from HI, it's actually from FI. So I'll get rid of this one and get rid of the inputs here. Now this should work theoretically anyways. Nice, this looks good. I just need to update the border to, rather than 1 pixel, let's set the icon border to 2 pixels, just to give the border weight. I would say this looks a lot like the original, which looks good. Okay, so I guess we've avoided the big bad wolf for a long while now. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about the image and social links.